In the White Valley, winter isn't just a season, it's a test. At first, the falling snow looks like soft tufts of cotton. Beautiful. But within days, that beauty turns heavy. It blankets the village like a white shroud, burying everything in its path. Here, life isn't about living, it's about surviving. Every morning, long before the sun even thinks about rising, the villagers are out. They shovel the heavy drifts off their roofs, knowing that if they stop, the weight will crush them while they sleep. Among them was Zaman. Zaman was a strong man, built for hard labor, but his eyes told a different story. They were clouded with a bitterness that didn't come from hard work, but from a soul that had forgotten how to be grateful. His wife, Zainab, was his opposite. She was the warmth in their cold house, moving quietly between the glow of the hearth and the freezing water of the buckets. Then there was their little boy, Aris. He was small, innocent, and somehow found ways to laugh, even when the wind howled through the cracks in the walls. It was 5 a.m., pitch black. Zainab slipped out from under the heavy frayed blankets and stepped toward the stove. The wood was damp. As she tried to light it, thick grey smoke began to fill the room. Zaman groaned, coughing as he sat up. He pulled his tattered wool shawl tight around his shoulders. "Every single day, Zainab," he snapped. "The smoke is choking me. Is there ever going to be a moment of peace in this house?" Zainab didn't look up. She kept blowing into the embers, her eyes watering. "The wood is wet, Zaman. It's impossible to find anything dry in this snow. Just a few more minutes. The tea will be ready soon." Zaman stood up and yanked back the window curtain. All he saw was a wall of white. "Peace?" he scoffed. "There is no peace in this hell. Look at people in the city. They're sitting in heated rooms, and here we are, digging ourselves out like animals. I don't know why I was cursed to be stuck in this miserable village." Zainab poured the hot tea into a cup and handed it to him. "We have a roof over our heads, Zaman," she said softly. "Think of the ones sleeping under the trees tonight. We should whisper a thank you for what we have." Zaman took a sip and nearly spat it out. "Thankful for what? This? There's no sugar, barely any milk. It's just colored water." He stared into the cup for a long moment, his voice dropping to a bitter whisper. "Maybe? Maybe I'm just tired of pretending this is enough." Zaman's job was at the local storehouse. He was paid to guard the grain and keep the paths clear. It was back-breaking work. Hour after hour, he would swing a heavy iron shovel, tossing mounds of snow so the roof wouldn't cave in on the food supplies. When he arrived, his childhood friend Bashir was already there. Bashir walked with a slight limp from an old injury, but he always seemed to carry a certain lightness in his chest. "Assalamu alaikum, Zaman," Bashir called out, a genuine smile on his face. "The cold is really trying to bite us today, isn't it?" Zaman slammed his shovel into the frozen ground. "Wa alaikum assalam, Bashir." "You always find something to smile about, Bashir. I don't get it. We're going to die buried in this snow. What's the point of all this bone-breaking work just to go home to a piece of dry bread?" Bashir stopped, leaning on his shovel. He looked out at the frozen valley, his breath coming out in slow, steady clouds. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just watched the wind. Bashir rubbed his hands together, trying to catch some warmth from the friction. He smiled. "Brother, the work has to be done. At least we have our health. At least our hands and feet still move. The boss said if we finish early, there's a bit of extra butter and honey for everyone today. Think of how happy the kids will be." Zaman let out a cold, hollow laugh. "Butter and honey? You want me to stand in this deathly chill all day for a dollop of honey? I don't want their handouts, Bashir. I want out of this life." Bashir went quiet. He knew it was useless to argue. Zaman had everything: a loyal wife, a beautiful son, his strength, but his eyes only saw what was missing. By the time the sun began to dip, Zaman crawled back home. Every joint in his body burned. When he pushed the door open, he saw little Aris playing on the floor with a clunky wooden car Zaman had carved for him 2 years ago. Aris scrambled up and threw his arms around his father's legs. "Daddy, there's a new toy at the market, a little motor car with a key. Can we get it, please?" Zaman shoved the boy aside. "Not now, Aris. Get away from me. You're talking about toys and I can't even feel my own legs. Go to your mother." Zainab stepped out from the kitchen, her voice soft and steady. "He's just a child, Zaman. He's been helping me clear the porch all day. He's earned a little excitement." Zaman kicked off his boots, his voice rising to a shout. "Everyone wants something from me. You want food, he wants toys, the house needs repairs. Why doesn't anyone ask what I want? I want peace. I hate this life. I hate being poor." In a fit of rage, he grabbed the small container of butter Bashir had pressed into his hand earlier and hurled it at the table. The lid popped off. The butter slid onto the dirty floor. Zainab's breath hitched. She knelt down, her eyes shimmering with tears as she tried to scoop it back up. "Zaman, this is our bread. Don't treat it like trash. If you stop being grateful for the little things, you might find yourself with nothing at all." Zaman gave a dry, jagged laugh. "Grateful for what? If this misery is a gift, I don't want it. I wish I could just disappear." That night, the storm turned violent. The wind shrieked, rattling the wooden beams until the whole house groaned. Zaman lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. He felt like the walls were closing in, suffocating him. He made a choice, a dangerous one. "If I make it to the city," he thought, "the lights will make me forget this cold. Zainab and the boy, they're happy here. I'm the only one dying inside." He moved like a shadow. He grabbed an old bag, stuffed a few pieces of dry bread inside, and headed for the door. He didn't look back at the bed where his wife and son were sleeping. To him, they weren't family anymore. They were chains. When he cracked the door open, a wall of freezing air hit him like a physical blow. The snow was so thick he couldn't see his own hand, but the bitterness in his heart made him blind to the danger. He stepped out into the white void, leaving the warmth of the hearth behind. He had barely cleared the edge of the village, struggling through drifts that came up to his waist, when a tiny trembling voice cut through the wind. "Daddy?" Zaman froze. He slowly turned around. Through the swirling white darkness, he saw a small, thin shadow. It was Aris. The boy was standing there in nothing but his light indoor clothes, shivering violently. In his tiny, frozen hands, he clutched that old wooden car. "Dad?" Aris's voice trembled against the wind. "Where are you going? It's so cold out here." Zaman's heart skipped a beat. For a second, he felt a pang of guilt, but he pushed it down. He made his voice go cold. "What are you doing out here? Go back inside. Now." Aris didn't move. He stepped forward and grabbed his father's hand. He was crying now. "My car. It's broken, Dad. Please, just fix it first. Then you can go." In that exact moment, a low, guttural growl echoed from the mountain above. It was a sound every villager feared, the roar of moving snow. Zaman looked up, and his blood turned to ice. A massive wall of white was screaming down the slope, like a giant waking up from a nightmare. Without thinking, Zaman snatched Aris off the ground and bolted. His lungs burned. His chest felt like it was on fire. They barely dove behind a massive jagged rock before the avalanche slammed past them, a deafening thunder that shook the very earth. Then, silence. The path back was gone, buried under tons of ice. Aris was huddled inside Zaman's shawl, his small body shaking with terror. He looked up at his father, his eyes wide and searching. "Dad? Why aren't we going home? Mom is waiting for us," Aris whispered. Zaman couldn't find the words. He looked at the path he had tried to take toward the city. It was blocked. He looked at his son, who saw him as a hero, even though he was a man trying to run away. With the main trail gone, Zaman had to take the long, difficult way back. When he finally pushed through the front door with Ariz in his arms, Zainab was sitting right there. She didn't ask questions. She didn't scream. She just looked at him, and in her eyes, he knew she saw the bag on his shoulder. She knew he had tried to leave them. She took Ariz from his arms. "His feet are like ice," she said quietly. She didn't even look at Zaman as she carried the boy toward the fire. Zaman stood by the door, his bag still heavy on his back. He felt like a criminal, but his pride was still fighting him. He was strong. He was capable. Why was he trapped in this tiny shack eating cold bread? "The food is warm," Zainab said, gesturing to the stove without turning around. "You must be exhausted." Zaman dropped his bag in the corner and slumped at the table. "I've been tired for years, Zainab. This kind of tired. A bowl of soup isn't going to fix it." Zainab placed a bowl in front of him. Her voice was calm, but it cut through him. "It's not your body that's tired, Zaman. It's your soul. You look at your family and see a burden. Others look at theirs and see a reason to keep going." Zaman picked up a piece of bread but stopped. "A reason? I'm everyone's support, but who supports me? This house, this valley, these people. Everyone just takes from me. What have I ever actually gotten out of this life?" The next morning, the news hit the village like a physical blow. The mountain pass was buried. No supplies could get in, and the locals were already panicking as food stocks ran low. When Zaman got to work, he saw Bashir. Despite the biting cold and the visible pain in his bad leg, Bashir was busy helping others clear their paths. He stopped when he saw Zaman. "I heard about the slide last night," Bashir said softly. "Are you okay? Is the family all right?" Zaman jammed his shovel into the ice. "Nothing is all right, Bashir. The road is gone. We're going to starve. This place is cursed. It's just one disaster after another." Bashir sighed, placing a heavy hand on Zaman's shoulder. "Zaman, you're looking through a fog. Last night, we didn't even have wood to light the stove. We sat in the dark. But my daughter, she just smiled and said, 'Don't worry, Dad. When the sun comes up, we'll have breakfast in the sunlight.' She was happy, just hoping for a sun she couldn't see yet. And you? You have everything, yet you choose to stand in the shadows." Zaman wrenched his shoulder away. "It's easy for you to talk, Bashir. You have nothing to lose. I have a fire inside me telling me I belong somewhere better than this hole." Bashir looked at him with a deep, quiet sadness. "A better place isn't a city, Zaman. It's the peace you carry inside. If you can't find joy here, you won't find it at the end of any road. You're trying to run. But you can't run from yourself." When Zaman walked through his front door that evening, the air felt different, heavy. Ariz was tangled in blankets. His face flushed a deep, sickly red. He was burning up. Zainab was pressed against him, placing damp cloths on his forehead. The fire in the hearth was dying. The wood was almost gone. "What happened?" Zaman asked, his voice cracking. Zainab's voice was hollow. "The cold got to him last night. He shouldn't have been out there in the snow. He's just a baby. The doctor came by. He said the boy needs to stay warm and he needs medicine. Medicine we can only get from the city." Zaman felt his stomach drop. "But the pass is closed. Nothing is moving." Zainab looked up at him. Her expression wasn't angry anymore. It was worse. It was hopeless. "He went out there because of you, Zaman. He was following you." Zaman couldn't breathe. The weight of his own bitterness was finally crushing him. He realized his desire to escape had put his son in a sickbed. As the night deepened, the storm outside grew into a monster. Inside, Ariz began to mumble in his fever. "Daddy, the car, the blue one." Zaman paced the small room. He felt trapped between two worlds. One side of him still wanted to run, to leave the responsibility, the cold, and the struggle behind. The other side watched his son fighting for every breath. Zainab stood up and walked to an old wooden chest. She pulled out a small cloth bundle, the few coins she had saved, penny by penny, for an emergency. She held them out to him. "Take it," she said. Her voice was hauntingly calm. "The main road is gone, but there's the old goat path behind the mountain. It's dangerous, terrifying in this wind, but if you start now, you might reach the city by dawn to get the medicine." She stepped closer, looking him right in the eye. "And, Zaman, if you get there and decide you don't want to come back, then don't. I'll take care of Aris, or the world will. Just go. Find your freedom." Zaman stared at the crumpled money in his palm, then back at Zainab. Her eyes held no anger, no hope, just a cold, quiet acceptance. He stood at the threshold. Outside, the world was a void of black and white. If death were waiting out there, you wouldn't even see it coming. The path Zainab mentioned was known to the locals as the Dead Man's Trail. On one side, a sheer drop into nothingness. On the other, shifting, unstable ice. He adjusted the bag on his shoulder. His heart hammered a rhythmic whisper. This is it. He could use the medicine as an excuse to leave and never look back. In the city, he'd be a ghost. No past, no family, no burdens. He could finally be free. But then from the bed came a soft, broken moan. Aris. Zaman took his first step out. The freezing wind sliced into his skin like a razor. He looked back one last time. Zainab was still there, huddled by the boy, holding his small hand. She didn't beg him to stay. She didn't ask for a promise. She just let him go. Two paths stretched out before him. One led to his desires, to a life where he was finally free. The other led to danger, to the same old struggle, but to the people who belonged to him. He clenched his fists until his knuckles went white. He had to decide. Was he going to let his bitterness destroy what was left of his home? Or was he going to risk his life for someone else for the first time? Zaman took a heavy breath and disappeared into the storm. But the question remained. Was he running toward the medicine, or was he running away for good? The storm grew teeth. By the time Zaman reached the high trail, every step felt like a gamble with the abyss. His hands and feet were numb. Each breath felt like swallowing broken glass. Even now, the war inside his head hadn't stopped. The city, or the boy. At a sharp bend, the ice gave way. Zaman's heart leaped into his throat as he slid toward the edge. He lunged, grabbing a jagged frozen branch. His palms tore open, blood staining the white snow, but he stopped his fall. In that terrifying silence, hanging over the dark, it finally hit him. He was completely alone. If he died here, the bright city lights he dreamed of wouldn't mean a thing. Hours later, as the first grey light of dawn touched the peaks, Zaman stumbled into the city outskirts. Life here was normal. People were sitting in warm cafes, steam rising from their coffee. Children in clean, pressed clothes were heading to school. Zaman caught his reflection in a shop window. He looked like a madman, hair matted with ice, his shawl torn, his face mapped with blue frostbite. He was a stranger here. This is what I wanted, he thought, to be a nobody. I could disappear right now. He reached into his pocket and felt the small bundle of coins Zainab had given him. He found a pharmacy and stopped at the door. One half of him wanted to buy the medicine and start the long trek back. The other half, the bitter, ungrateful man he had been, whispered that this money could be his bus ticket to a new life. He pushed the door open. The bells jingled, sounding too loud in the quiet shop. "I need help," Zaman said, his voice raw and breaking. "My son." He's sick. High fever. His chest is tight, please. The shopkeeper handed over the medicine and named the price. After paying, Zaman looked at the change left in his hand. It was just enough. He could rent a cheap room in the city for a few nights, long enough to find work and start over. He stood outside the pharmacy, clutching the small paper bag. Across the street was the bus station. Engines were idling, and drivers were shouting destinations to far-off places. Zaman started walking toward the station, but with every step, he felt a ghost tugging at his sleeve. He remembered Ariz's tiny freezing hand reaching for his in the dark. He saw Zainab's eyes, the way she looked at him when she gave him the money. She didn't even expect him to come back. He stopped in his tracks. If I don't go back today, Ariz might live, he thought. But he'll grow up knowing his father left him to die in the snow. And if he doesn't make it, what kind of freedom is that? Bashir's words echoed in his head, cutting through the city noise. You see your family as a burden, but to them, you are their only shelter. People brushed past him, shunting him aside. But Zaman stood like a statue. He finally saw it. His bitterness hadn't just made him miserable. It had made him blind. He was looking for peace in a new city, in a new life, when the only peace that mattered was back in that freezing shack. He gripped the medicine bag tight. He didn't look at the buses again. He turned and began to run, not away, but back toward the mountains. The trek back was brutal. The sun was dipping, and the temperature was plummeting. By the time he reached the village, his legs felt like lead, and his lungs were screaming for air. He saw shadows standing outside his house, Bashir and a few other neighbors. Zaman's heart hit the floor. Am I too late? He burst through the door, gasping for breath. Zainab was sitting by the stove, her eyes red and swollen. Ariz lay motionless on the bed. Zainab, Zaman choked out. I'm here. I've got it. I've got the medicine. Zainab looked up. She saw him, covered in mud, soaked with melted snow, trembling. She didn't ask where he had been or why he was so late. She just took the bottle and carefully pressed it to the boy's lips. Bashir stepped inside and placed a hand on Zaman's shaking shoulder. You made it back, he whispered. I was afraid you'd lost your way in the storm. Zaman looked at the floor, a lump forming in his throat. I didn't lose my way, Bashir. I finally found it. The next morning, the sky was a piercing clear blue. The sun hit the peaks, turning the valley into a sea of gold. The fever had finally broken. Ariz opened his eyes, pale but awake. Zaman sat by the bed. Ariz reached out, placing a tiny warm hand over his father's rough scarred palm. Daddy, the boy whispered. You were right. It's too cold outside. Thank you for going out there for me. A single tear escaped Zaman's eye and landed on his son's hand. He looked up to see Zainab setting the table. It was the same old scene. The tea was weak. The bread was hard. There was still no sugar. But as Zaman took a sip, he closed his eyes. He had never tasted anything so sweet in his entire life. He broke off a piece of the dry bread, looked at his family, and whispered a quiet, heartfelt thank you. Zainab's eyes lit up. She could see it in him. Zaman hadn't just brought back medicine from the city. He had left behind the bitterness that was turning their home into a tomb. Life was still hard. The snow didn't stop falling, and the pantry was still mostly empty. Poverty was still knocking at their door. But something had changed. Zaman wasn't fighting the world alone anymore. He finally realized that his family wasn't the weight holding him down. They were the only thing keeping him afloat.
The lesson of this story is simple. We often spend our lives chasing the things we don't have, starting so hard at the horizon that we step right over the treasure at our feet. Bitterness and greed don't just keep you poor, they rob you of the peace you already own. You see, real wealth is not about the balance in your bank account. It's about the people who stand by you when the world turns cold. It's about the hands that hold yours when you are too tired to keep going. Life doesn't always give us what we want, but it almost always provides exactly what we need. The moment you stop counting your struggles and start noticing your blessings, the air feels a little lighter, a heart full of complaints in a prison, no matter where you live, but a heart full of gratitude. That's the only way to truly be free. If this story meant something to you, like, subscribe, and share it because someone out there needs this message.